Yes, Ahmad started.
Okay,
Just so info and they started.
uh, so I'm starting. Okay,
I,
so let me start my camera. Sorry. It is visible.
yes, yes, yes.
Is it full screen?
No, no.
Let me check why it's not full screen. 1 minute. I will again share it. I think there was some issue. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Ahmad Khalid. Today, in today's lecture, I'm going to talk about how you are going to develop the research project. Here, by research project, I'm particularly talking about your course, that is MSD 018. I am going to talk about how can you develop your project thesis for this PGDSS program, that is MSD 018. 2 days back, I think Professor Kuman also briefed you a brief outline about what is being expected, what are the procedures of submission and other guidelines about those things. But here I will also illustrate you with an example how you can choose a topic and taking help from an article. I will show the different components of the project which we will talk about. So let's start today's counseling session. So I would like to start with this quote. This is by Basil S. Wash. He's a lawyer, American lawyer. So he says, if you don't know where you are going, how can you expect to get there? So this is what research is all about. So we need to know what we are going to do, how we are going to do. So we'll talk about that. So the outline is as follows. I'll briefly touch upon the MSDP project work, the key steps involved in it. I will also talk about the project proposal. How will you propose your proposal? I will also talk about briefly what is expected in your project report and other administrative procedures. Then I'll talk about the components of the project or report using an example from a research article, and I will show different components. I will also talk briefly about how you can choose or think of a topic, what can be a topic for your thesis, and that will be ended with references and further readings I will suggest, and then you can definitely ask me questions. So let's start. So here, if you look at the project work, I'm particularly talking about your thesis project. So the key steps can be represented as follows. So you start with your project proposals, then you consult a supervisor. I will talk about all of these things, and then the project proposal is submitted. Then when you submit it, it is either approved or not approved. So in case it is approved, you move ahead, you write the project report. If it's not approved, you have to again resubmit it. Then finally, once you write the project report, you have to submit it. That will end the requirements, and you should know that the as far as the evaluation is concerned, the project report is constitutes 75% of the marks, and 25 marks will be for viva, which will happen once you clear all your coursework examinations. Then you can have the viva. So in project proposal, the very first thing that comes to your mind is you have to select the topic. And how would you select the topic you might think of? So the topic, when you're thinking, it has to be suitable, relevant. I will talk about all of these things just in later slides. What is the timeline? How much data is available on that issue or topic which you're going to take up? Is there any cost involved? Will it require some sort of communication? So you have to consider all of these things. Your booklet, that is MSD 018, already presents in the annexure some of the topics. For example, in the gray box, I have taken it from your booklet, that is MSD 018. So they also suggest some of the topics like economic value of conserving a park. These are just four I have listed. The list is long. Role of NGOs in rural livelihood, traditional knowledge, rapid urbanization. And the other box, the green box, I have suggested few of the topics. For example, the topic are not limited to the ones given in the booklet. It can be anything like the role of UN's SDGs in global development, urban development impacts on climate change. Recently, COP26 happened. Countries made pledges, so someone may think of India's climate leadership role and COP26 pledges. I mean, it's endless. The only thing you have to take care is that it's relevant, and it can be done within a stipulated time. So in the project proposal, what you have to clearly state is there's a title, you introduce it, there are some objectives of the project, some problem statement which you will define. You will also write what is the research methodology which you are going to use in that. Then there will be some problems and issues which you will face during your conducting that project. So what are the limitations? So these all will be part of your thesis. So now talking about how to consult a supervisor. So as far as what IGNU guidelines says, you can have a supervisor from any department of IGNU. Uh, any of the academic counselors who are impaneled with IGNU can be your supervisor. Teachers and researchers in sustainability domain or industry, if you know someone, you have contacts, they can also serve as your supervisor for your project proposal. And you have to take care that their education, they have a PhD in environmental science or economic or sociology, anthropology or related disciplines, or at least they have a master's or MPhil and they have 2 years of research experience or teaching experience in that particular domain. Say the topic you are going to choose, they are expert of it. So they can be anyone. So once you have consulted your supervisors, so be very clear that what is going to be the role of the supervisor. The work that has to be done by you. Be clear from day one that it is you who will be doing everything. But yes, as a supervisor, he will guide you. He may encourage you. Sometimes he might have some data with him or her, or he might also know some sources from where that data can be made available. He can help you with that. Sometimes you will require for data collection or traveling that you want to go and meet some organization. So he might write some authorization letters to you also. So that's how the role will be of a supervisor. And once you have the supervisor with you, so you submit your project proposals and there's an address they have given. You have to send that, and there's a proforma which your annexure MSD booklet MSD 018 clearly defines. All the details are there, you can refer that. So you just take one copy of that with you and you send that. And there are 2 times when the project proposals are submitted. For January session it is submitted by 30th April, for July session 31st October, and rest you can submit throughout the year. And as I said, it can be approved and it may not be approved. So you will be communicated by email and post within 6 weeks. In case of non-approval, some comments and suggestion will be given from IGNU, and you can revise that again, go through the same procedure. So that was regarding your project proposal, the first step. Then once your project proposal is clear, you will be writing the project report. So again, like the proposal, the components are almost similar of your project report, but now your work is very clear and you conduct your work. And when your work is done, then following the template, then you will write the report. So there are some guidelines given, like the length of your report should not exceed, say, 10,000 words, that is also a typical length of a review article, journal article, and it should be 40 to 50 double spaced pages. And but it's not a standard rule, and there can be flexibilities, plus minus 10% as permissible. And again, like the proposal, you will submit your project report. There's address, and there's a division. You will send one copy to the registrar, student evaluation division. And you also have to ensure in your project report that the work you have done is your original work. And for that, you have to certify, and your certificate of originality is there. You will sign it, your supervisor will sign it, that it's your own work for ethical purposes. And there are other details like you have to wrap in envelope, this should be the size, and this you can look into the manual, that is MSD01 booklet, and all the annexures are given, all the procedures are given. I was just trying to put it in a very brief manner because this is already talked about. Now let's start with our main discussion today. So starting with the components of the project report or a research article. So in the previous slides, I talked about that there will be a title, introduction, objectives, problem statement, precise methodology, summary, limitations, and other things. So Booth, Willem, and Com, 2003, they have also provided a brief project heading and outline that what a project will consist of. So they say that there will be a topic. The topic will what we are going to study, and the question and problem we are going to find out what is the significance of the problem or question we have posed, so that we are able to investigate more about it. We are someone is going more deeper in it, and what is the primary resource. For example, if there is a data, so where will be that data? Where the data will be obtained? Who will collect the data? Who owns the data? And issues like that will be talked about. If it is a secondary source, so what are the other sources which I'm going to use in my research? Then there is a methodology section. It says that this is how the research is going to be conducted. So we'll talk more about this when I will illustrate with you examples. Then you also, when you choose a method, or so you also have to, in research, a key component is that you have to justify also that yes, if I'm using this methodology or this technique, this is the reason I'm using this technique, and why I'm not using that technique. Should we have also to talk about these aspects? So that is what by justification the author means. Then of course, in every research, in every work, in every project, if you're working, there are always some hardships, some limitations that you were trying to accomplish that, but you will not able to do all. There were some time constraint, cost aspect, some traveling issues. For example, in the recent pandemic, a lot of research work was halted. Many projects timeline were extended by more than a year. The research articles or journals, they allowed even 3 to 4 months of lapse time, that you can take more time because nobody was able to go at the rate they thought if the pandemic was not there. So going more into the suitability of the topic, uh, we talked about what can be a suitable topic. So there can be more depth to this discussion. For example, you want to replicate an existing study in a different setting. For example, uh, there is an issue. For example, say in China, there is an issue of population. China is the world's largest population country. So a decade back, the Chinese government started a policy that every married couple cannot have children more than two, and later on they decreased it to they cannot have more than one, and they were able to control their population by a huge figure. So say it was done for, so somebody thought of doing such a study. What were the implications of such a policy in China? There's so many works. Many argue that that was not a good decision. And recently also, if you look at current research, the China has relaxed its two-child policy, sorry, one-child policy, and they have gone back to two-child policy because a lot of population was aging back, so youngster population was decreasing. So a lot of work is done over China. So same, somebody say thinks about doing for India. So this is what I mean by saying replicating an existing study in a different setting. So it was somebody did for China, now you are doing for India. The conditions will be different. There will be some similarities. So that can be a topic. You are replicating. Then one can explore an under-researched area. For example, the marginal communities in the Himalayas, or say some tribal population in the Northeast. They are facing a lot of hurdles, but people and media and the government not putting a lot of attention. So somebody thought of researching that area. So that is what I mean by saying under-researched area. And then there can be studies which extend the existing study. There is already a work on some topic, and now you want to extend. Somebody thought of doing research in the Ganga basin about the fertility issues and the crop pattern in the Ganga Jamuna Delta. Now you think to extend that to neighboring river basins or neighboring land areas or neighboring states. So you're extending that work. Another important source of for a topic or a thesis can be that you go for a review article or review work. That is, you are reviewing the article. What is already done, what you are doing is you are compiling and summarizing all of it at one place and put it in the form of review works. You're showing that these many people, say 20 people, have done research on this topic, and this is what they have done, this is what they have found, this is the methodology they have used. Some have used this methodology, some have used this methodology. There are some regional differences. Some have done studies in the Asian region, some have done in the American continent. And this is how these 20 people, if we have to summarize, looks like this. So this is also a very good source of knowledge. Review articles. When any researcher starts, he particularly starts by looking at the articles which are published and looks at the articles which are review articles. So it can also be a form of topic for your thesis. Then you can also develop or test a methodology. For example, somebody gave a model, some hypothesis. So you think that no, the model he has proposed looks old, or it will not be applicable to current situation. So you say that no, this is a weak model. I want to propose this, and this is how this is better. So this is what I mean by saying developing or testing out a methodology or method. Similarly, there can be theoretical ideas to real world problems. You don't know how you will accomplish that, but you have some idea that this is how it will look like. For example, government of India recently, the Honorable Prime Minister committed net zero by 2070. So nobody has seen 2070. So somebody thinks of this is how India should approach to achieve net zero in 2070. So that would be a theoretical thing, a theoretical idea we are talking about. And here, when you're choosing a topic, you have to be very careful about the time aspect and the cost aspect and its possibility. So, and you are thinking about a topic or some topic interests you, and you are very much into it, but will you be able to accomplish it in 2 months, say 2 months, 3 months? So you have to be very clear, because idea may be very good, the study design may be very good, but it is possible that it requires more time. For example, if you're going for a survey, for say you want to look at industries located in the NCR region, so you want to meet the industry or firm officials, but you said that I will do 50 companies in NCR region. So, but when you started your work, say the pandemic happened, or there was a strike, and say the firms were not approachable, so you were hardly able to do say 10 or 15. You were targeted 50. That might be one of the issues. Sometimes you choose a sample, for example, a geographical location. For example, you chose a hilly region. That my study, I will do some work on, say, Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand. But sometimes there are landslides happening, and sometimes the roads are blocked, so you're not able to go there, travel there, and that also will affect, and you will not able to complete your work. So you have to think clearly in terms of time, possibilities, and cost aspect. Now, I'm using this article, which is titled Concerns of Developing Countries and Sustainable Development Goals, Case for India. It was published in the journal International Journal of Sustainable Development and World Ecology in 2020. So I find this article interesting because it was having a good illustration of almost all the components you are going to have in your project thesis. So I thought that will give you a good feel about how to approach your thesis and different components. So I will be using this article reference throughout the components I will talk about. So let's start with the first component, title. So, whenever you're going to do any project work or write a research article, definitely the title of the article is very crucial. That is what will catch attention, that will tell people what the project or research is about, what is the focus area, what is the problem we are talking about, what is the bigger question. We have to take care that a title cannot be very long. It has to be catchy, crisp, and relevant. For example, if you look at the first box where I have written selected article, the article which I have referenced, the title of the article is Concerns of Developing Countries and Sustainable Development Goals, Case for India. So when a newcomer or someone for the first time sees this title, so what can you learn? So if we look at the title, one thing is very clear. The author is going to talk about developing countries and sustainable development goals. And he also talks about India by taking a case of it. So three things are very clear. We are talking about problems of developing countries. We are talking in terms reference to sustainable development goals, and it is also clear the author will talk about India. So it's clear. So the title cannot be a simple statement, which is very confusing. For example, I have taken other title from some of the recent works in this area. For example, a title can question also. For example, see the third one to the left bottom. Where is the EU headed given its current climate policy? A stakeholder-driven model intercomparison. So, what we learn. So the author is trying to tell the audience or the research community that what is the current climate policy in Europe and where they are heading. And for illustrating that, the author has used a stakeholder-driven model and compared that. So this is very much clear from the title. So in your thesis, the title might not matter so much, but in case of research articles, sometimes the articles, the editors themselves say that your article title is not good. You have to make it concise, you have to make it appropriate. So such comments they give. So when you choose a title, be very specific. Think about what is it about I'm going to do, my work is about, or where the focus area is, and what is the issue or the bigger problem. So it has to be catchy. This is what I mean. Now, you The first part is after your title is introduction. So what we talk about in the introduction? So you say what the topic is about. You introduce the problem. How did the topic emerge? You may talk that this is how this topic has emerged, and these are the reasons that I'm going to talk about this, or I'm going to handle this problem, and that's how I have chosen. So it's a summary where you introduce the problem, talk about it, you tell why you have especially chosen that, and what you're going to do in the next sections. For example, so it's from the same research article, for example, number one box you see, the author writes, the SDGs served as a powerful medium. So the title was, let me go back, this was the title, Concerns of Developing Countries and Sustainable Development Goals, Case for India. So have this in mind while I discuss all the sections. So he introduces in the introduction section that these are a powerful medium which provide member states a feasible development pathway that ensures a balance between economic and social environment. He also says that SDGs created a level playing field for developing countries. He introduced it. Then see in the box two, then in a letter he also says that despite several promises of the SDGs, there is increasing concern globally whether the SDGs address real problem. So then he also shows that there's an increasing concern that it is SDGs are good, and but there is also some concerns which developing nations are facing. He again then changes the tone to that. Then if you come to box three, so he said the real and long-term impacts of SDGs in developing countries will require serious efforts. So he also said that this will also entail serious effort by institutions like United Nations. Then he talks about other things. Then if you look at box four, uh, as the title was that there will be a case study on India also, then he introduces briefly that why we are going to talk about India, and he says that among the developing nations, India plays a key role for the adoption and success of SDGs, and other details that. So he says that later on he says that discussion on India with its huge population in a way strengthens. Now this is the justification he's giving. I have chosen India because India's role is very critical, and I am discussing India because India has a huge population, and that strengthens a leave no one behind agenda of all the SDGs. India has a large inequalities, socioeconomic problems, and the demographic indicators are also weak. India has a large global burden of health challenges. So these are the different reasons the author cites, and this is the reason he has taken up India, and India's role is crucial. So these aspects also come into your introduction section. Then lastly, he also talks about the main aim of the study. So your introduction section should also highlight what is the main intent. So then the author writes that the main aim of this study is to highlight concerns and opinion of experts on SDGs and its associated implications. In addition, it tries to answer key questions like what future holds for it, whether SDGs can address priorities and development issues of India. So this is how I have tried to give you a glimpse for an actual article which was published. So how the authors have approached the introduction section. So now the second component is the review of literature. So there is a title, then you introduce your article, then you do literature review. So what all is in the literature review? So in literature review, there may be work done by earlier researchers. What all has been already done, that is all part of literature review. And the source can be an article, it can be from the published books, they can be data which is existing in different repositories, data which is published in different journals, article, books, policy papers, government documents. It may be news articles which is available, and the whole purpose is to generate ideas. You show gap. and it helps you frame significant questions. When you do the literature review, you are able to find what all has been done. There are areas which has not been done, and this is where I can contribute, or this is what I can take up as a topic, that this is not done. I will do this thing, or this is has already been done. I want to extend that. For example, if you look at the table one, which I've taken from the same article, so it is titled Key Issues of Concern for Developing Countries with regards to SDGs. So if you look at the right side, these are the different papers, articles, and books that the author have cited that, for example, serial number one, issue number one, unrepresented perspective, national priorities, or process of national adaptation. So this is a big issue for developing countries, and Allen, Peter, 2018, O'Neill, they have talked about this in their article, these many authors. Similarly, some of the articles say that there's a high implementation cost and lack of finances, and authors have cited those references. So your research literature review can be in the form of table. You can tabulate it, and you can also write simple paragraphs for different studies or authors or institutions. For example, the box below for India, it shows that I have highlighted the Comptroller and Auditor CAG. There's a report of India's 2019, which says that SDG implementation of SDG in 7 states highlights several issues such as unaligned roadmaps, milestones of SDG targets, and budgeting requirements, delay in finalizing monitoring, weak public awareness efforts, and others. So one can tabulate the literature review, you can cite the references, and you can say that this particular studies or references taught about these issues. And you can also write in terms simple paragraphs. You can simple take Allen et al. And write in paragraph form. So this can take both formats. And you're generating idea, you are able to find out the research gaps from the existing studies, and that will help you uh, select a good topic which is significant. Now, after review of literature, another component is the methodology. So I talked about initially that in the methodology, you try to show that how you're going to accomplish your research, your project thesis. What all have you done? How have you done? And what are the ways you will approach them? This is all part of your methodology. And the methodology also involves certain tools and techniques, statistical tools, you can say. The methods can be quantitative, qualitative. It can be a mixed method that involves both of it. And the test and the tool which you select, it depends what is the objective of your study and what is required out of the work you have proposed. For example, the work, the authors, the article I have taken, in that the author, this is, if you look at figure one, they have shown a schematic diagram of methodology of this study. So this is a very well accepted format that in the methodology section, you try to present a schematic diagram that how your study is going to look like, what you have done, and how you're going to approach that, and what are the questions you are trying to ask in your research. For example, here, if you look from the top in figure one with me, that the author has done online questionnaire survey to experts across India. So to find out the status of SDGs in India, what experts think in India, what is the future for SDGs in India, the author conducted an online questionnaire survey to experts across India. And who are these experts? So he provides that the experts included government officials, academicians, think tanks, NGOs, and other parties. And where these experts located? Then he says that the responses were collected from 18 states and one union territories. Then he details the names of all the states and union territory where he has done that online questionnaire survey. Then, in the next step, he said the survey focus and discussing questions for India. So, when we approach the experts, what we talk to the experts, he says that the topic of the expert discussion or the survey was we talked about SDG and its ability to solve real problems. What is the priority level of SDGs? What is the SDG implementation challenge in India? What will be the use of SDGs, and why the low income states are performing poorly, what are the reasons. So this is all the author has asked in that questionnaire survey, which he conducted across 18 states in India, and reached out to experts, which included government officials, academicians, think tank, NGOs. Then he also mentions that the tools I have used, that he has used Likert scale, used categorization rule, he has used priority based on vote share, he has done thematic analysis, and used minimum count in his method. And finally, the authors have suggested given suggestions to Niti Aayog. So when you draw such a diagram, it gives you a glimpse of your methodology, what all you are going to do, how you're approaching it, who are your target audience, what is the geographical area you are working on, or say, yeah, not these are not states. This might be some industry. For example, you want to look at sustainability issues in, say, IT sector. Someone may look at the manufacturing sector. Someone may look at socioeconomic issues and women empowerment issues in, say, apparel sector. So that will be your target, say, focus area. It need not to be always a state or a region. It can be an industry. It can be a country. It can be a continent. You can talk about the problems in Asian region. You can talk about problems in Latin America. Then you can talk about tribal issues in a, say, a particular state, say, in a state of Assam. You can talk about your local issue in your hometown. So anything can be a topic. So similarly, as I said, they talked about government officials, academicians, think tanks were participant. So he also tabulates it, that how many respondents were there. I conducted an online survey. So how many were there? So the authors were able to collect or reach a final get answers from 51 respondents. And then he also details in the table that I conducted the survey between 15th November 2019 to 15 January 2020. So almost he took an year for this survey. So this is a long time. So this much time you won't get in your project thesis. Uh, so it was a research article. So for them, they did that. So it can be 2 months, it can be 3 months. So you have to detail what was the timeline also. Then he mentions that there were 7 government officials or policymakers. There were 5 people from an NGO, from UN agency also there were 2 people, from industry there were 7 people. So he also breaks down that who are these 51 people and how many are from different sectors. Then the 18 states he talked about, he said that he also represents in his methodology that we received how many responses from different regions. For example, he classified all the states in terms of central, eastern, northern, northeast, southern, western, and he wrote the name of the state and in bracket, for example, Gujarat too. So author were only able to get 2 responses from Gujarat. Similarly, for Delhi, they were able to get 8 responses. For Uttar Pradesh, they were able to get 10 responses. And author also writes in the note that the classification I have used, classifying the state regional classification, I have used the National Family and Health Survey design. So this is how you give insights to your methodology part. What tool you are using, what technique you're using, who are your target audience, how you're approaching that, how much people you're talking. For example, in case of a survey, you might not go up with a survey. You can particularly go for a case study. you go to that place. You do not go with an online survey. You go for an actual field survey. That can be a part of the method. You may do a case study. You can do a telephonic interview. You need not to go anywhere. So that can be your technique. Or simply you don't do any online questionnaire, no survey. You only want to do a review article. So you will also show that how you have reviewed the research articles. You can show in a diagram that I have taken, say, articles from period 2016 and 2020. I have taken 5 year slab, and in these slabs, for example, if I'm looking at socioeconomic and women empowerment issues in IT sector, so I have taken all the research articles or say between 2016 and 20. So what is the latest trend I want to find out? So I have limited to 5 years. Then you talk about how many papers you have taken, how many are research articles. So that's how you can define in your methodology. And then you can say my focus is not on only on women who are, say, 20 to 40 years of age. You can say that I have only focused on 20 to 40 years of age women. Then you can say that I have not focused across all the states in India. I'm particularly looking at only the NCR region, or say I'm only looking at the Bangalore or say Hyderabad IT hub area. Then you can say that the tools I'm using. So it can be another possibility. I was just illustrating. It's not the only way. So once you have clarified your methodology section, then you conduct your work and you have results and you discuss that. For example, in this part, you will show the findings of your research. The findings of the research can be your statistical analysis results, that can be graphs, that can be tables, for example. And while you are presenting your results, you also discuss that. And when you discuss that, you have some finding. You agree, for example, some of the previous works have also shown some results. So you may say that my results also matches with the existing research of, say, these authors or these researchers. And your findings might also disagree with the existing research. For example, somebody found that the uh, most efficient women employees are they have conducted in IT service area, uh, and they found that the most effective age period for women employees in the IT sector was between 25 to 30 years. So now, when you conducted research, say between 2016 to 2020, or 21, and you were doing for, say, Bangalore region or Hyderabad region, you said that no. So though the previous research says that the most effective age group for women in IT sector and most productive age group is 25 to 30 years, but what my research over the last 5 years shows that the most productive age group for the Bangalore IT region was between 25 to 35 years or 40 years. So you can disagree also, but based on some research. You say that this is what I have found, and this is what research existed. So you need not to agree all the time. You may agree, you may disagree, but and whatever you have found, you have to present it nicely. For example, in the same study which I am using as a reference, so one of the questions to experts was, what is the priority level of SDGs for India? So the authors have categorized it into three categories: category 1, 2, and 3, high, medium, low. So they say that SDG 3, that is the SDG 3 that is on health, and SDG 5 on reducing inequality, and second on hunger. These are the top three high priority for India. For India, health is a big issue, reducing inequality is a big issue, and hunger is a big issue in India. Recently, only if you have watched the global hunger index was released, and India's performance was very poor on that. India was one of the worst hit countries in the world. Similarly, so the medium, then the low, that these are not very big issues. For example, SDG 1, reducing poverty. India has done very good work on reducing poverty. So that is also reflected from that it has obtained a low priority level from the experts. So you can correlate it also, the results which you have conducted and what actually is the scenario. This is what research is about. You do something, you have some findings, you discuss that, you correlate with the existing research, or you have a very different finding, you show that. Then in another question, the experts were asked, what is the preference of SDG implementation issues? So, for example, the authors find that more than 52% authors find that the main implementation issue for SDG implementation in India is like missing data, lack of data, improper data. So 52.38% of the experts agree to that. And so the authors have also given relevant references that it is not us which we find from this survey. The, Prasad and Singh, the CAG report, Niti Aayog, Janardhanan also talked that missing data and lack of data is a big issue for SDG implementation in India. That is how you substantiate your results and you discuss and strengthen your work. And in this figure, for example, one of the questions the survey asked also was what is the reason for poor performance of low income states in India? Low income states, I'm talking about Jharkhand, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha. So, so don't take it otherwise. If somebody is from these states, I'm from UP, so I don't mind that. So please, it's just a part of the research I'm showing. So the top issue in these states, the author found out that weak institution, policy making, and governance. And I will also agree that yes, there is a lot of issue. There is a lot of issue in the basic infrastructure deficiency. And if you look at the health sector, the education sector, these states, they are not doing very good in that. And for example, several state governments are struggling with revenue deficit, and it is evident from literature also. UNESCAP says that the Indian government will have to spend 10% of its GDP to meet SDGs by 2030. So you can substantiate also that. That's not what I have found. Even other works are also saying and talking about that. So then there is one of the last parts is conclusion. So what we are going to talk about in conclusion. For example, in conclusion, you have to be very crisp and you have to present the main findings of your work. You talked in detail in the previous work, you explained, you introduced the problem in the introduction section, you talked about the methodology of the study, then you have your results, detailed results and graphs, figures, tables, and now in the conclusion, you're simply putting the main finding of your. For example, the reference article says this study discussed the concerns raised by developing countries with respect to SDGs. Then they use opinion of experts on SDG regarding its implications and future. And for this, a case study for India was present. So very briefly, in one line, they said that what they have done in this work. Then they said that in the second box on my right, it was found that then also said what they found. Some of the key issues they highlighted that more than one third of the experts believe SDGs have great potential to solve India's real problems, while a so same he says that he also said there are issues. Then then they also highlight authors feel that studies like SDG priority exercise can help central and state governments. There are some suggestions that studies like this can help central and state governments to allocate their resources in an efficient manner. Then also in the conclusion, they say that talking about SDG implementation in India, they said we recommend an audit of this statistical capacity. So some suggestions also are given to government authorities for future possibilities. We recommend an audit of the statistical capacity, financial and human resources, and SDG data availability in the country to gauge the actual gap and existing state of SDGs in India. So, so it can briefly talk about what you have done in the study a little. Then you said what was found, some key elements of it, and you can also talk about what you feel, and if there are some policy issues, you can briefly describe them, and you can also recommend what could be done, some future work, anything. Then I think the last component, as I said in the earlier, that always when we are doing research or doing any project, we face some problems while conducting that. and these issues may range from anything, several factors. So, for example, limitations showcase the problem or issues we faced while conducting the research. These limitations and further research, it will also help new researchers. For example, somebody, for example, has taken up this research article which I have referenced. So he will or she will come to know about what the next possibilities. So some work has been done. These are the loopholes. So one may get to know where to start, what to look new in the area, or what I can extend in this work. So there can be many possibilities. So sections on limitation and further research is always very helpful, and it enriches your discussion and your work. So for example, the article, they said that the main limitation in the study was only half of the coverage of states and UTs in India. If you remember, I told that the authors have covered only 18 states and one UT in India, but India has almost 29 states and more than seven UTs in India. Two new UTs have come up, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. So, of course, it was half of the states in India. So, if somebody is now doing a study, if that person is doing covering all the states of India, definitely the findings can be richer. It will be a new contribution. So it is open. Half of the states somebody has done, all the states India, then it could have enriched the discussion. So this was one of the limitations they have cited. Secondly, they also said that to get a better perspective on the SDGs and associated concerns, an in-depth survey should be conducted across all the states in India, some suggestion they have given. However, they think that because of time and resource constraint, the authors were not able to conduct that or will be able to conduct in the future. So they said that a government agency and policy think tank like Niti Aayog is very capable enough, and if they do such an exercise, that will be a great contribution for India. And this will also improve the participation rate and stakeholders. For example, if I conduct a survey as a researchers or you approach people, somebody will not take interest when you contact them through email. But if an government official, say a Niti Aayog, floats a survey and sends to academicians, researchers, government officials, and different people from industry, of course the reply rate will be very high. This is one of the bad things in research, that we as an individual and as students, when we approach people or write them mail, so most of the time you'll find you will not get all the emails or the replies. So that is why they say that the institution like Niti Aayog can, if they do that, that will improve participation rate and stakeholder diversity. Then they also say that presently there's a lot of issues in data availability. If good data is available, so in future we can do more in-depth analysis and statistical analysis. For example, this is more of theoretical and less of quantitative work. But if good data is available, we can bring out more insights by doing some core empirical analysis. So this is what they have done in their limitations, and they have suggested some areas for future work. So that's how you end your thesis with that. So I think more or less these are all the components of your thesis. I hope you will have gained some insights that how you're going to approach your thesis now. These are some of the references I have used in this for this counseling session, and these are some readings I have suggested, and yeah, I think you will benefit if you go through these readings. So I think that's all from my side for today's talk, and I'm open to questions. Thank you. Hello, Professor Kuman.
Yes, yes. Now, session is open for discussion, please. Session is open for discussion. If you have anything, we can discuss. Otherwise,